It's a very interesting week because, it's spring, I've been going out, I've been doing stuff, right? It's been very, very nice. So I haven't really been paying attention to gaming news, but it's very interesting when you look at, like, the gaming landscape in the ecosystem because Nintendo Switch 2 is obviously doing very, very well. Obviously. Mario Tennis Fever was great. Pokepia was great. Tamagotchi Life is going to be great. Pragmata is doing pretty well on Switch 2. Like, we're seeing all these signs that all these games are doing very, 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 very well. And yet, overwhelmingly, we have this weird, narrative from certain people that, like, the Switch 2 is going to fail. It's going to get a price hike, and it's not going to have any games. And I'm just kind of like, you guys do know what's going to happen, right? Like, we're going to get a direct, probably in June. They're going to highlight the big holiday games, and all of a sudden, you're going to see an explosion of relevancy, okay? Like, again, in a lot of ways, the Switch 2 is only getting started. Like, it is far from its high point, okay? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, we're kind of just waiting until Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and then start making major announcements. Just kind of like drowning out like the Grand Theft Auto hype thing. Like, would not be surprised by that at all. But like the way it looks now, when you look at the release schedule, we're getting Tamagotchi Life and Pragmata within a couple of days of each other, both of which are huge releases. And then you look at like May, which has Yoshi and like Tales of Arise, and then June, which I think has like Grand Blue and I think something else. You have like all these games that have been confirmed for Switch 2. That are coming out for Switch 2, that are huge deals on Switch 2, and yet, like, the community at large is still trying to, like, pretend as if Nintendo desperately needs a 3D Mario announcement. Otherwise, they're going to go bankrupt. And that isn't going to happen. I do think, like, the interesting thing about the current state of Nintendo is that what we're seeing is that Nintendo is doing extremely well at expanding their older franchises, okay? They're modernizing certain things, okay? DK has gotten a redesign. I think the new Star Fox will get a new design. I'm sure F-Zero is going to get a new redesign. Like, we're seeing them, like, rethink a lot of their classic IPs, and that makes sense because a lot of these characters have been, like, pretty much stagnant since the 90s, okay? They've been pretty similar. Like, Mario and Zelda, I think, have been, like, a little bit modernized in the past decade. But now we're seeing the same thing happen to the B-string franchises. Like, we're seeing all this come out. We're seeing all these announcements. And we're seeing, like, everything they're doing. And I'm just kind of like, it's going to be very, very interesting seeing the community rally to Downplay, like, whatever comes out. Right, because like we saw this happen with Rhythm Heaven Groove, right, where they released the release date on Nintendo Today, and a lot of YouTubers got scared because Nintendo Today is set up in a way where they can't really grift off of it, they can't really share it on Twitter afterward. Like, everybody who's interested will just get like a notification on their phone, like, oh yeah, here's the release date for Rhythm Heaven Groove, or a new Fire Emblem Shadows trailer is available, or like Nintendo Direct coming today. Again, it's the news from Nintendo is going to be sent straight to fans through the app, okay? So no Twitter involved, no YouTuber. We're kind of seeing the end of the Nintendo YouTube grift. And I would argue we've been kind of seeing it die for over a decade, okay? We are nowhere near where we were in, like, the 10 years ago, during, like, the peak Wii U era, where, like, everybody was hating everything that came out, and everybody was saying that Nintendo needed to listen to Western gamers more, and, like, everybody was saying that Nintendo was out of touch and irrelevant, when that was, honestly, peak years for the company, creatively, if you really think about it. We're very far removed from that, but, like, we're still seeing the YouTubers try the same tricks. Like, the difference is people aren't taking them as seriously. People aren't watching their updates, people aren't watching their podcasts, people aren't watching anything. And if they do, it's people like me, watching Beat 'em Up's review of Brothership and just kind of going like, no, that's not true. He's lying about this. He's being unreasonable about this. And basically concluding that he's just trying to shit talk the game because, like, it goes against the narrative, because what the online gaming community wants is, like, specifically endless 1,000-year door sequels, story-driven Mario, darker Mario, just like, everything Mario isn't, essentially. And it's a textbook example of why you should never listen to your fans. And Nintendo knows that. But like, what we've been seeing lately is that like more and more people are starting to like push back against the narrative, the idea that we can't support brothership because what we really want is more Paper Mario. You know, the idea that games like Nintendo Switch Sports aren't very well handled. You know, you're seeing like narrative regarding Splatoon, Fire Emblem, Xenoblade just completely collapse. Like again, like how much longer can this go on? Honestly, you know, we haven't even seen like the 3D Mario get announced yet, and yet we're kind of at the point where the whole like hate cycle thing has just become kind of a parody of itself. Where like Nintendo Land has spent like every week like telling us that Nintendo has forgotten about Mario, forgotten about 3D Mario, and like it's just when we finally get it, we just know that the reaction from his audience is going to be like very, very, very disappointed. Like, because again, no matter how good 3D Mario is, like it's never going to live up to the hype set up by that specific community. And that's like the weird thing we're seeing, is that Nintendo Land made a fool of himself complaining about 3D Mario, and when we finally get it, like he's going to complain about it no matter what, okay? Like, you know, his audience is going to complain about it no matter what. Like, it's just a mindset that, like, we really shouldn't get into, honestly. Is this mindset that, like, you know, I won't try anything different, I won't try anything new, I won't play RPGs, I won't play sports games, I won't play life sims, I won't play anything other than 3D Mario or Zelda. And it's just, like, it's a really stupid mindset to be in, okay? Like, we've seen this happen so many times with, like, people like RGT85 and just how much they spurg out whenever, like, something that isn't, like, a AAA game comes out. Like, it's become a real problem that, like, to the point where, like, I would honestly say that the majority of the people in the community are posers who don't actually know what they're talking about. Okay? It really does come off that way when you watch the YouTube videos and see them react to the Nintendo Directs and, like, start spurging out about perfectly viable IPs like WarioWare, like Rhythm Heaven, like Nintendo Switch Sports, like, you know, endless games. Like, you know, I remember when Echoes of Wisdom was coming out, and, like, you know, people got it in their heads that somehow the game would be casualized, that it would be, like, unbalanced, and that the puzzles would have, like, multiple solutions, so that would mean that the game would be, like, brain dead easy to play. It was completely and utterly wrong, honestly, and, like, honestly embarrassingly so. Is just my mentality on it. Like, Echoes of Wisdom was really, really creative and fun, and yet, like, the community just rejected it for very petty reasons. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at now, honestly. Is that for a lot of Nintendo Directs, especially the ones that have happened this year, when it comes to, like, the movie premieres, when it comes to the indie world we got, when it comes to the third-party Direct we've gotten all these really good announcements of games coming to Nintendo Switch 2, and yet the general community just turned its nose up at everything. You know, they just refused to acknowledge that, like, anything that's coming out is good, because it wasn't, like, a general Direct. And it was just very pathetic and very sad. And I do think that, like, we do need to speak out against this mindset more often. Like, I do think we've gotten plenty of Directs this year. We have plenty of information about upcoming games. Plenty of games have come out, and yet, like, for the vast majority of the community, like, they'll never admit that. Like, because they didn't play anything. They don't look. They don't play old games. They don't, like, experiment with new ones, right? These guys are so brain dead that they can't even bring themselves to try something new.